Fallout 76 has been out for a short while now, and it's safe to say the reception has been not good. I personally have not played it enough to really formulate a complete opinion, and I don't think I experienced some of the bugs that I'm hearing about, but apparently for some people this game is just utter garbage, and if it was just one or two people complaining about it, I might put it down to, bad luck or just people who didn't like the game. But I'm seeing a lot of people who are just pointing out bug after bug, flaw after flaw, and really the sheer volume of people screaming and pointing at this game and saying, "Oh my god, kill it with fire." It's not a good sign, is it? No, it's not. And, when you consider the reason I've not played the game very much is I actually rage quit after my first try in the full release because I encountered a bug with the key rebinds that basically broke the camp building mechanics. And it's a bug that's been in Fallout 4 since the start. It's a bug that Bethesda never actually fixed. I'd completely forgotten about this. The modding community fixed it. They fixed it, and I just forgot about it because the modding community had fixed it. But it's still there in Fallout 76, and I was, pretty horrified by that, and also I had to find a way to get around this. Now, I have found a way around it now, but seeing as I'm seeing so many reports of so many bugs that have existed for so many years still being in the game, I'm really not completely sure I even want to go back. I really was going to go back and give it a shot because I thought this could be fun with some friends. Play with some of you guys, we mess about a bit, do some settlement building together, camp building together, do a little looting. It could be fun, I thought. But right now, judging by the negativity I'm seeing, I'm feeling less and less inclination to go back. But I actually don't want to talk about Fallout 76 very much in this video, at least not directly. What I want to do is talk about Bethesda and the direction they are heading in, because I feel like they are exhibiting something akin to the Peter Principle. And for those of you that don't know, the Peter Principle is where people tend to get promoted to a level where they are no longer good at that job, to the level of incompetence it's usually stated as. And that may sound a little harsh, and it is, but in this case I believe it's warranted. Bethesda don't have the experience in this sort of game, and it looks like they do not have the expertise needed to make this sort of game, which shouldn't be a huge surprise anyway. This is not the sort of game they make. But worse than that, many of the flaws, glitches and problems that existed in Fallout 3 that was released 3 years ago are still present in this game. Flaws that were often fixed by the modding community. So these were known bugs. Bugs that could be fixed by the modding community, therefore definitely could be fixed by Bethesda, and they're still present in Fallout 76. And I'm not just talking about the key rebind bug that I came afoul of. There are other bugs being reported by other people that have been around for a long time, and that is pretty unacceptable. It is unacceptable to ship a game with those kind of bugs. Added to the fact that this game is it's made by someone who really is out of the depth, at least that's how it seems to me. And, it just seems to be a recipe for disaster. But more importantly, they seem to have made a game that really is not aimed at their fan base. Even if they've marketed it as such, it really isn't. It is a multiplayer survival game. And, people were somewhat shocked at the fact that it didn't sell well, that it only sold something like 20% as well as Fallout 4. I'm shocked that anybody's surprised by that. I would have said that was to be expected. The fan base for Bethesda Game Studios games tend to be fans of a certain type of game, and that certain type of game is the easily moddable, single-player, open-world RPG, because that's what they have been making for years. It's what they are known for, and in spite of all the little flaws and glitches we all like to laugh at them for, they're very good at making those easily moddable open world single player RPGs, and they've moved into a whole new area. They were never going to do as well. They were never going to sell as many copies of Fallout 76 as they did Fallout 4. That was pretty much a given. But I also have to point out that Fallout 76 was not the first time they seemed to move away from their fan base, because Fallout 4 exhibited signs of a Bethesda Game Studios game trying not to be a Bethesda Game Studios game. It made quite a few changes that may have gone down well with the game critics, the journalists, but as soon as it got to the fan base, generally speaking, there was more negativity than you would have expected from the release of Fallout 4, and rightfully so. Certain aspects of the game had changed. Now, I'm not saying that Bethesda should not try to change things. They should not try to improve things. They should not be afraid of, going out there and trying something a little out of the ordinary. And they've been doing that actually quite successfully. If you think about their foray into VR, a lot of people were very skeptical about that. But I have to say, I'm really impressed at how well they did bringing Skyrim to VR. I haven't tried Fallout 4 VR, but I'm expecting it to be as good as Skyrim. They didn't just make Skyrim VR a gimmick, they made it a playable game. I was very impressed at how well they managed to port an existing AAA title into the VR realm. So, big thumbs up for that. I'm one of these people who didn't even mind the fact that they are updating the game, bringing out Skyrim Special Edition, bringing it to new consoles. I think that was a good idea. And I really love the fact that they made mods available for console, at least the Xbox. I'm hoping for their next game they can get PlayStation sorted, if they can get Sony on board. But I think that was brilliant, because one of the big strengths of their games is how moddable they are, how easily moddable they are. And if they can get that, even in a more limited form than we can get on PC, even in the form it is on Xbox, that is a big strength, I think. I think that was a great move. But in Fallout 4, they made some changes that just didn't work, in my opinion. These include things like the voiced protagonist and the sort of third-person cinematic dialogue that was going on. This, to me, felt like they were trying to make a BioWare-style game. Like, I know some people out there had been complaining that, you need a voiced protagonist and your dialogue should be more like BioWare because it's much more emotional. And I know this criticism had been thrown out. I'd read it, and I always passionately disagreed with it, because that's a different type of game. The sort of game that Bethesda Game Studios make don't gel well with that cinematic third-person voiced dialogue system, because, well, I've already made an entire series devoted to what it is I loved about the previous games, the Elder Scrolls, Fallout 3, etc. And a big part of it is being able to create your own character, including his own voice. A big part of it was also understanding exactly what I was saying when I chose a dialogue option. Bethesda Game Studios does not need to try and make the Elder Scrolls games or even the Fallout games more like Mass Effect or Dragon Age. Different games need different things, and I do know there were some people who did ask for that, but the people who were quite happy with the existing dialogue and with the lack of voice protagonist, they were silent not because they agreed with the ones who wanted the voice protagonist, but because they were still busy playing Skyrim and had nothing to complain about. This is part of the problem. Silence from the people who are happy, even if the people who are happy are like 1,000 times stronger than the people who are unhappy, their silence doesn't get heard, which is unfortunate. Fallout 4 also had a far more emotional and somewhat invasive main quest. Now, they had been criticised for their main quest in previous games, and so obviously they had taken this to heart and tried to make something a little different. The problem is, whilst that seems like a laudable goal, it came at the expense of one of their major strengths. And one of the major strengths of Bethesda Game Studios games is the main quest does not get in the way if you don't want to engage with it. It means you can play the game several different times and totally ignore the main quest on the second time if you want, or even the first time. I have to tell you, when I play Bethesda Game Studios games, the last quest I generally do is the main one. And Fallout 4 did not allow that. So whilst it might have been a laudable goal, something they were aiming for, I believe it also damaged the game because it robbed their game of one of the strengths that their games usually have. And yeah, I know there were some people out there who said, I'd love a multiplayer Fallout game, and so they've gone off and they've made a multiplayer Fallout game. I would argue the people asking for a multiplayer Fallout game were not asking for a survival game. They were asking for a co-op version of Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, or even Fallout 4. They were not asking for what they got. And I think it's time that Bethesda started focusing on the people who are happy with their games, or at least the people who were happy with their games back in the golden age, back when they just released Skyrim. What it was that made their game so great, so that even though there were people criticising them and poking fun at the glitches and the funny little bugs, generally the consensus among the fan base was, we love this game, warts and all. We love it even if there is a weird glitch, even if the guard won't stop going on about arrow to the knee. In fact, we're going to poke fun at it because of that to the point where it becomes a meme. Bethesda need to look at that, their fan base, what their fan base wants. And it's not easy, because the fan base tends to say things that may sound good, but don't necessarily equate to what they really, really want. And a classic example of this is, we want a new engine. It's time for Bethesda to update their engine, in spite of the fact that they've updated it pretty much every game. Usually people are talking about the physics engine. It's too glitchy and it doesn't perform well. Here's the thing, and I asked this in a live stream the other day. Fallout 4 was, for most people, the best performing and most stable game that Bethesda have ever made. Its performance was noticeably better than Skyrim, and it was a lot more stable. It crashed a hell of a lot less for most people than, say, Skyrim did. So this engine was a massive improvement. So was Fallout 4 better than Skyrim? Was it critically received in a better way? And of course the answer is no. So improving the engine, it might be something everyone says, yes, you should make a better engine. And yeah, that would be nice. But that won't make the game popular. That will not, that will not negate any of the problems that the game has if that's all it has. A new engine, a voiced protagonist, an emotional main quest. Right, but does it have that Bethesda Game Studios experience that I'm hoping for? When Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, or Starfield for that matter, will I be able to leave whatever starting area I have and just head off in a direction and do my own thing if I want, and meet interesting characters and do quests that are not necessarily the main quest? Or will I be dragged around and forced to do the main quest to unlock just about everything? Will I have a voice thrust upon me and forced to accept that all of my characters will sound the same from that moment onwards? Will this be forced upon me? Because if that's the case, then you could get a nice stable engine with even nicer animations, etc., and I'm not going to be impressed. I'm not going to be impressed. Which is a shame, because I'm pretty easily impressed. I don't need bling. I don't need technical stuff. What I need is an easily moddable, single-player open-world RPG. That's all I want. All all of the rest would be nice. And a nice improvement to the engine. Yes, please. More factions. I've got a laundry list of things that I would like to see. But what I need is an easily moddable, open world, single player RPG that I can play over and over again, and then mod it and play it over and over again, and again and again. I need the next BGS game to come out, and for me to still be playing it 7 years later, because that's the case with Skyrim. And here's the thing, if Bethesda ever listened to this. What I just asked for is what you're good at. That is your area of expertise. That is your area. That is the place you shine the most. What I'm asking from Bethesda now is for them to make the sort of game that they're good at making, that they have experience making, and that I believe the fan base want. I'm not against trying new things, and you've had some successes, and yes, you've had some failures. But you've had a few too many failures recently, and it's time to just, go back to what you're good at, take stock, and release, I'm going to say it again, an easily moddable, single-player, open-world RPG. I don't mean to sound demanding, but that's what I want. That's why I follow Bethesda. That is why I love their games. I love their games because they produce a certain experience that no other game really does. And I don't want Bethesda to stop doing that because they're chasing the dream of being the next live service, multiplayer survival game provider. Or the next generic shooter. Bethesda Softworks has Rage, and it has Doom, and it has all these other games. They scratch that itch. They also have Bethesda Game Studios, and I want them to make a typical Bethesda Game Studios game, warts and all. I mean, I don't want you to deliberately add flaws, but I don't mind if those flaws are in there, as long as it scratches the same itch that Skyrim scratched, that Oblivion scratched, that Morrowind, Fallout 3, and even Fallout New Vegas. Yes, I realise it's the bastard stepchild of the family, and you'd rather not accept that it's part of it. But for the community that's grown up around these games, that's still part of it. I'm sorry, it's the Jon Snow of the Brethren, okay? And that's what I want. That is what I want. Now, I'm not saying they have to do this, but I would actually say if their next game is not a easily moddable, single-player, open-world RPG, the reaction it gets is not going to be good. And I think they need a good reaction. I think they need a positive reaction. They need a win. They need a win at this point. Yes, they do. Too many losses recently. They need a win. So that's it. That's my advice to Bethesda. Go back to your roots. Go back to what made you great. Go back to focusing on the sort of game that made you famous and made you so beloved by many of us.